I want to look at the positioning again, just from the total money gained and obtained. This guy's still struggling here. He's down at 68. This guy down to 97. The other players all making more money. Kind of disturbed. I guess there was that extra share value over here on the pen player, but I'm a little surprised that he didn't end up finding something to buy with it. I'm not sure. Anyway, he's a good $60 ahead of the guy who's got the same holdings as him. So, he'll be picking up that extra share somehow or another, I guess. Big money over here on the pen, and the NYC owner, 177 and 181 respectively. So, this guy's actually weathered the storm better than expected. He's got $146 in cash. Not thrilled with his holdings, though. He made a big, nice jump with the NYNH, but he's got that C&O share. Of course, that's sort of an extra share that he's got on him. This guy's got an extra share, too, with the IC, which explains why the NYC, which didn't produce as much, is why the player holding the NYC is doing the best, actually, because he has an extra share that's producing. All right. The players have filled out their portfolios here in the marketing round. We're moving to the operations. Oops. I don't remember to drop the C&O. There's still shares of it kicking around here. But all the other older railways sold out. They've all kind of recouped their position, or money makers now. And there's no great opportunity, nothing worth selling off a company. Nobody was holding anything they really wanted to get rid of. Although, there maybe was some debate. For example, the NYNH. This guy could have dumped his NYNH, but what would he buy? Well, what's left? We have the Erie, the B&O, and the Wabash. The Wabash isn't too bad over here, but it doesn't have a lot of cubes. It's not going to be terribly powerful. The Erie's back here. It's not going to make a lot of money. And the B&O down here is really kind of cut off. It needs to start early if it's going to work well. And I think it's actually an underpowered railway in this game. It doesn't look as good as the C&O to me. Although, of course, maybe it wouldn't have gotten slammed as quickly as the C&O. It's got a route to the cheap coal if it makes a quick run for that, where it could have cut off the pen and gotten all the southern coal maybe. I don't know. But what we saw was the pen just become incredibly dominant over there. So anyway, the first buyer started floating Boston and Maine's, thinking they looked pretty good. Maybe he could get them sold out, and he managed it. Second player agreed to that and threw some money into one. He didn't have a lot of cash, you can see. He would have had enough for a real rail, though. He could have bought an NYC, which he didn't, which were better, definitely better buys. So I don't know about that decision. Over here, well, the NYC was too much of a boon to pass by for him. Unfortunately for him, the pen owner managed to turn that extra money, that extra share, into 2 shares of NYCs. This guy kind of diversified, picked up a lot of different certificates and things. That's more dangerous in this game than it is in most 18xx games. In an 18xx game, 1 share of everything is pretty much safe. Nobody can dump a presidency on you. In this game, 1 share is sufficient to get something dumped on you. But the something has to be pretty much failing. And there's no real way of raping a company that's unobvious. The C&O was obviously on a death spiral. The B&M looked worse, though, and it has recovered. The C&O hasn't managed to yet. His real question was, did he dump all his NYNHs? Well, now that it's sold out and good again, it's making decent money. It's the 3rd ranked railway. He's got 3 extra shares on top of that. The NYC was able to fill out his fill out the 60% here. He didn't want to sell it out. He didn't want those shares gone. He wanted to continue cranking money. Now he's going to have to swallow, but he's got a big influx of capital. which means he doesn't have to swallow for quite some time. He can buy a new railroad and start servicing that huge route. And that thing's going to make a lot of money. He just would have rather been investing in other people's railways and let the NYC keep collecting cash. But, you know, if other people are going to throw all their money into it, he might as well get up a higher percentage of the take. We can see from the stock market values what our ordering is going to be. Nothing too exciting. Okay, the new operating round has started off fairly extreme. The Pennsylvania pulled another call, and you can see they pushed up to 19 a share, their payouts. They're still just running on these two little trains, but they're pulling a lot of money in. But the New York Central just busted things wide open, buying 2 4 trains. They discarded a 2 in order to have some money to build track, and jumped their way up to 34 a share. I think this is the break open point that's going to make the NYC owner the winner here. Now the question is, should they have kind of done it more slowly, trickled in 1 4 train and run that and expected they could get a second one and get another stock improvement out of that? Or should they be grabbing this huge income as quickly as possible? It's hard to tell. $10 a share difference is a pretty major factor in here. So I don't know if they're making, you know, I think they made more than $10 a share additional on this move. Well, there's no question they made more than $10 on the move, but I mean on the second move of adding 2 more pips to the train, probably not. That would have been probably about $6 a share. So I think they made a mistake by not holding off. The only danger would be what happens if all the 4 trains run out. But there are a lot of them. They would have gotten the second one cheaper, which means somewhat better position. Now, there's still room for growth on the NYC. There's no question there. They're able to, they've got enough cubes to get themselves into Cincinnati, which is another big city. And then here's the thing, when the next big train comes out or whatever, they can replace the 2 with a bigger train. They've still got a lot of cities here. They got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 cities. That'll be 12 total. They're only running 10 worth of train, so they could actually afford another 4 train and just run that for the game. In fact, they probably kind of want to swallow, but the problem with swallowing is they lose the stock value there. So, and they're going to just be going up. I don't think the trains are going to fall all that quickly. So we'll see how that works out. And now we're moving on to the newer railroads, the Nickelback. With the revenue values increasing with the new tech level, both the 2 newer companies, which are kind of vibrant and still able to expand as well, have seen an increase in their values too, as they're moving into kind of the richer zone now, past the NYNH. We'll see how the older companies hold up. And we'll be moving into the second business round there. With those older companies, the NYNH is pretty much frozen, unable to buy improve its train. It's got 5, so it's kind of waiting if it gets a 5 train available and has cash on hand, which it may well with the decommissioning of these 2. It'll get a little boost there, but then that'll be the end of it. It's got all its cubes on the board. That'll be the biggest train it can run. That'll be all it can make. So it's got one potential boost coming up. The others, though, showed a little bit of life. The B&M couldn't improve its train, but moved into Baltimore. It's actually keeping that 1 train. I don't think that's adding to its income, but it got a little boost out of the income increases in the Northeast. So it got a stock increase there. And the C&O was able to purchase train. It decommissioned its old train. Now, it would have lost money off its old train, and it needed the money to build or to stockpile money to build track. Right now, it's not running an optimal train. It's running a 4 train on 5 track. That's fine because it's got some pretty crappy locations. But it would like eventually to get into New York and Philadelphia, so they're kind of building up for that. They're getting half the money in the stock in the company treasury right now. But, you know, it is showing some life, and it may bust out and join the rest of the kind of laggards at some point in the game. And he's only got one share of it. The only problem is all these sitting in here are just going to keep depressing the stock price. So even if the value starts going up like it did here, that's just holding even, really. So now we go to the second business. And as we finish up the round, really more of the same. All the leading companies managed to make some sort of advantage here. They're beginning to tap out, though. There's no question. The Penn still has significant potential for growth. It's got the coal mine, and it's got a bunch of chits. It's got room for for better rails. It just needs to swallow once to get that. But he's been pumping up his stock price. Now, he could take a pass turn on the coal. And, you know, do a swallow in order to get enough money to buy trains for the next turn so that he can start cranking his money. But there's no real need to. He's not going to become less profitable, even if things keep pushing forward with these old trains because of the addition of the coal. And then when the time comes, that swallow will happen, and he'll just pull the money from it and be able to buy a train right off the bat, because it's a lot of money already. It's $240. That's gonna, you know, that covers one of these right now. It'll probably cover a 5 later on, whatever, because that's just gonna go up each time. And we're running out of opportunities to advance without buying the train. The NYC, though, is pretty much tapped out. They've got all their track down. Yes, they have room for another rail. They're at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Ah, shit, I cheated. I built a bridge that I couldn't build. Son of a bitch. Yeah, see, I crossed this impassable area. The map is very difficult for me to read, and a number of people have complained about it because it just isn't. It just looks like this green blob, and there isn't a lot of distinguishment. So there's not really this visual to cue you in that that's there. Yes, you can see it, but it's such muted tones overall. I'm just going to let that sit, because trying to rectify that would mean, well, we can give up Cincinnati. But that means that I made less money this turn, and a significant amount less. So my 10 train ran, and who knows when it had to be done, right? My 10 train would have run 4, 10, 14, 18, 29. Geez, I don't know. I gotta come back after I count. Surprisingly, since I added Cincinnati this last turn, it dropped me to the value I had before. So I dropped the share value back down to where it was. New York Central is out of places to expand to. They could push down to Baltimore, though. And we'll grab that hex because I think it's the best I can hook to. Anything else is going to be painful. Well, no, Pittsburgh's better. Oh, geez. Pittsburgh's actually better than Cincinnati. Son of a bitch. All right, I got to give that money back. What the hell? Okay. So now I got to recalculate the money again. Because I had taken $12 a share away from everyone. And... or $2 a share away from everyone, because that was where we were. But the truth of the matter is I could have hooked up into Pittsburgh just as easily as anywhere else, and just as easily as Cincinnati. I can't rectify the time. The New York Central might have made it into Chicago a turn early, might have made more money. I got no idea about that. Then again, it might have made no difference whatsoever. Maybe they had an extra chit when they moved into here. So there's just no telling about the effect of that. But for this turn's effect, I can rectify what went wrong fairly easily. The only difference is, well, Pittsburgh's actually better. So instead of, Jesus, I think this should be 37 actually. I got to recount their values and redo it, but they should be up a buck from where they were a share. No big shakeup in the player order, but we're beginning to see the steamroller effect in play here, I think. Maybe not. Maybe it's just proportional. Our lowest ranking player, the guy with the B&M and the kind of nice little nickelback there, is down at the lowest with 129. At the high end, we got the NYC player with 530. Now, he's actually steamrolling over everything, over the pen, whatever. The pen's kind of, everybody's keeping up with the pen in terms of, I think, proportionally. But I think the income that this thing's bringing in and the boost that it brought in is tremendous. Now, it is tapped out. There isn't much more it can do. That's what I was trying to talk about before. I've got 12 cities. I've got 10 of them hooked up. The other 2 are fairly low. I'm out of cubes. So what that kind of means is, okay, I can add another 4 train. I can ditch this and add another one if I do a swallow. I've got to do a swallow to do it. It's probably worth it because of the stock value increase and the long-term cash increase. I can do some quick math in my head to decide if it is. It's in this guy's best interest to maximize the profit by far because nobody else has many shares of it. So he doesn't want to swallow if it doesn't help him in the long run, right? How long is the long run is a good question. There's still 3 companies out there to eat up some trains. A lot of the companies out here don't really need trains, you'd think. Well, maybe not a lot. The NYC, like I said, needs 1 more. The NYNH might be able to buy another one. The B&M might be able to buy another one. But the other 3 companies are all in a position to exploit another train, at the very least. 4 companies, because the pen is ready to bust out in terms of expanding with the cubes. It doesn't have a whole hell of a lot left, but it should be able to increase its income up into the NYC's level easily. Especially with all those coal, it should be able to do quite well once it's got cities connected and it's using trains for them. One thing to note, though, when you go for coal, you're eating up your track capacity. You're no longer going to be able to run to as many cities as you would be able to. So it's not going to be that much more than the NYC, because the NYC is running through some very rich territory. Yes, there's some blank spaces. There's no question. You got to spend track to get to the locations. But the pen doesn't have that track anymore. It spent it all down here servicing the coal mines. Say one thing, this little tiny paper money, it's artistically it's the same as the old Mayfair money, exact replicas of the money they use, but shrunk down in size, and the shrunk downness makes it really, really annoying. And it also doesn't have the nice texture that the Mayfair money kind of had. It had a little bit more heft to it. So these just become really annoying little thin slips that, you know, honestly, I do want to play with poker chips with this. I like money, but this is becoming very annoying. I'm having trouble picking it up. I feel like I have to crumple it a little bit to get any hold on it at all. Now we're hitting a period of the game that's obviously going to be the beginning of the end. Not everything's been set up. This isn't the end game where you're just running the last couple of operating rounds, kind of on automatic pilot, which usually happens in an XX game. But this is where all the companies have fallen. Let's take a look. This guy didn't have enough money to really buy everything out. He picked up a share of IC with the hope to not see the B&M kind of be crashed down. He had no terrible desire to see his nickel rate increased. Didn't really look too much to the opportunities available because he couldn't sell stuff off. He's in really poor shape. But the second player, I think he made a mistake here. He started off the Erie. Now he only got 3 shares of it. He might have been able to get more shares of the C&O and taken control of it. That's a growth company if there ever was one. And instead he decided to float the Erie on kind of low money, although at a decent price. He's only got 3 shares of it. It's got a lot of cubes and looked like it had a long-term expansion plan. Now, if everybody else wasn't coming out at the same time, this would be no big deal. If he had, this round to basically be dealing with the Erie and maybe one other company coming out at the same time. But with so many companies hitting the ground running, I'm not sure this is going to work out terribly well for him. And one of those companies is the CNO, which, like I said, I think that was the sleeper. He got lucky to be able to hold on to the company with 1 share. He threw the rest of his money in here, bought these up, and then what we see, well, over here we see another company coming in, the Wabash. Not a lot of counters, not a lot of power to expand, but there may not be time to expand a big company at this point, just as a matter of the trains beginning to fall too quickly and the tech level reaching level 6 too quickly. That brings us, but the reason you want these new companies is because they have the opportunity to grow. You're going to increase their share value as well as get their income. And, clearly you don't want to get rid of Penns and NYCs or even these kind of mid-range stuff terribly much to get these. But we do see a couple of the B&Ms, which aren't going anywhere and are only pulling in $10 a share. Well, the increments of making continual improvements makes up for that $10 a share, plus the gravy of whatever they end up making. So the new companies exceed what that $10 a share is going to be here. We're seeing what, $8 for the first pop here, $9 here, $9 here, $10 here. So as long as companies can keep improving their income, they're going to make more at this stage in the game. And cash isn't necessarily that important. You don't want to get rid of your shares at this point necessarily, unless you can find something better to invest in. But usually it's hard to find good things to invest in the late game in an XX type game. And I think it feels the same here. So he decided to start his new company for that opportunity. Now, someone else could have taken that company, made it a richer company. We didn't see that happen. Instead, we saw the guy with piles and piles of money start the B&O at 74, but he started with 50% capitalization. It may not be such a terrible thing. The only problem here, well, somebody's got to buy a 5 train before he can get through Philadelphia. But there is some rich area for him to exploit here, just like there is perhaps for the CNO, although the CNO is kind of unhappy to see the B&O start here, because that means maybe Philadelphia will open up first for the B&O. As it stood, only the CNO was available to get in there, which made it more attractive. Otherwise, he's got to kind of head west. He's got some expensive track to build. He's got to buy another train. He's got a lot of things on his mind to handle to make this run worthwhile. And then finally we come over to player 6, who says, okay, I think those CNOs were a good deal. Now, this may be a mistake, but see, the thing is, the CNOs are the cheapest stock. It's well funded, and it's making a decent money. So it's going to, okay, it doesn't get the same return per share, but because it's cheaper, he was able to buy more certificates of it. So he's able to kind of get more per dollar, even if not more per share. And that's always one of the trade-offs in an XX game is, sometimes the biggest money is made off the things that cost the most per share, but you may not be getting the best return per dollar, and you got to kind of balance that out. I play kind of by gut on most of these, which may mean I make some mistakes and don't bother with the calculations. I like playing by gut. It feels better to me. All right, well, let me make sure that nobody has enough money to do something else, and then we'll roll into the market business. A little bit more action. The B&M owner opened things up by picking up the rest of the shares with the company. This protects his stock price. He doesn't have enough cash to buy anything on his own. However, he did have enough in the company to do that. That slows the potential for the company actually getting a growth, but that growth would be a single growth at best, and negating that by picking up the shares negates going back one, which probably evens that out, although there might be an additional advantage to the growth. There also would be the potential that this goes more than just this round, which is pretty likely, I think. I think we got another round after this. So the B&M, we'll kind of hold it out and play a little more conservatively there, perhaps. I don't know. I mean, this guy's not going to win no matter what, right? He's kind of looking at the not to be too made fun of anymore point, but he's probably stuck in last place. Then we swung all the way around to the NYC player who bought all those cheap C&Os. Well, I forgot to pay for them and had to figure out how much to pay. But he bought a share of Erie, largely because the Erie is positioned a little higher in stock value than the rest of the new lines. So by doing that, he's able to get a growth company because neither of these look like they're going to grow too many times. Could have ditched the IC and gotten another growth company, but that didn't seem worthwhile at this point. He's kind of torn on the should he have bought an IC and helped maybe its chances of growing more quickly, or diversify, grab the Erie, and end up with something that makes more money. He thinks he's in the lead, so the diversification strategy probably, playing by gut rather than calculating everything out, probably ends up being the safer route. It's kind of okay, well, maybe I'm wrong on this one, maybe I'm wrong on this one, but one of them's probably right out of the two decisions. I don't know, because there is certainly an advantage to throwing more money into a company that you're planning on holding on to. So if he doesn't want to hold the IC, if he didn't particularly want to help the IC out, he maybe should have thrown more money into the Erie. But I don't want to do the calculation. So like I would do in the normal stock market where that calculation is impossible, I'm kind of playing it with a balanced approach. And we'll go on to the business round and we see our order for that. So as we jump into this first operating round here, the pen ran, pulled another coal mine. Now it's got the same conundrum that the NYC is facing right now, which is, do I swallow? It didn't for this turn. For this turn, it still wanted to pay out so that they could boost their stock value yet again. But now it's stuck, right? It doesn't have enough cash to buy another choo-choo. If it swallows, it might get an extensive increase in its value. But it's doing pretty well at this point, right? It's got some good cities, good enough that a one train is not a bad thing, actually. But if it buys another train, it may want to cash that in towards the value. Let me show you the kind of thinking that has to go into the NYC. So the NYC player, it doesn't matter how many certificates he has. None of it's in here. He's just looking to maximize his profit. So right now he looks at, well, if I swallow, I am foregoing $37 a share. That's where I'm sitting. That's how much my opportunity cost to a swallow is. So how long will it take me to make that back? Well, the first turn after the swallow, I get 10 extra bucks a share. And just from the share value increase. And every turn thereafter, I'm going to be pulling in, I'm estimating about $5 extra a share, because I think there's a 30 and a 20 that I add to my alignment. Now, if the game runs longer, that may go up a little bit. The 30 here goes up to a 50, whatever. So as the game will go longer. As the phases change, it's a little bit more. But here's what we're looking at. We're looking at $10 a share plus 2 operating rounds. Well, no, we only get 1 this time, plus 5. So $15 for the first turn that we go through it. Then each turn thereafter, let's say we add, I don't know, let's say we're in the 5s by then. Let's say it's $6 a share then. So 12 more. Now I'm at 27. I'm still $10 behind. So I'm going to have to go through basically 3 sets of rounds, of pairs of operating rounds, to make up for that swallow, in essence. That's a lot of time. Am I going to make it that far? I don't know. Let's look at how many trains we're talking. We're talking 2 trains to get to the 5s. Where's that going to be? Well, And actually, I'm going to make an extra buck for that. Certainly the Erie and the Wabash are going to buy that out. We've got the B&O over here that's going to buy one out. So now we're in the 5s. We need to buy one. Either a 4 or a 5. We're not sure what we're going to get, but it's probably going to be a 5. It looks like the Penn's probably going to buy one, but we're not sure. That gets another one out of the way. Well, there are a decent number of trains out there. I think it's worth the swallow. I think we're going to go far enough that we're not going to use up all those trains very quickly. Now, obviously, the IC and this, we don't know when exactly they're going to come out. We can look at their money. This guy's got enough to buy a train. This guy has, and money's open, 160. Are there any trains that cheap? 200's the cheapest, but he's going to be producing a significant amount of cash with all those shares, so he's probably got one. So let's discount the Penn. C&O, we threw a lot of money in there. It's got a train. You know, I don't think it's gonna pay out. I think the safe move here is not to pay out and to establish the baseline. The Penn player thinks he's falling behind, so he may have to buy that train. We can always reverse the decision next turn and take the swallow on the next operating round if we see how things fall. But I think at this point the safer move is the one we want. The trains start falling kind of hard here. Let's see. After the NYC, we get the IC, which did not have enough money to buy one. It's running its train at big 70%. It looks like it'll collect up enough. But then we go to the Erie, which is, oh wait, no, I'm sorry. The IC ran in there, and it bought the last 4 train, no, the second to last 4 train, and increased, boosting its income up to 220. Then the Erie comes, buys its first train for 200 bucks, pushes track down to Pittsburgh. I don't know if that's the best move. I want to go west, there's no question. The big question here is, was the 10 bucks from Pittsburgh better than picking up a little less at Cleveland and moving my way where I could get some of the richness here a little faster, or this doesn't look very valuable, so I didn't really pay attention to going eastward with the Erie. I'm looking at a western expansion there in the long run. And again, I don't want to count everything out. One of the nice things about XX games, and this shares with it, is you don't have to do counting constantly. You can play on guts. I found with a lot of the winsome designs, things like Chicago Express, I have to count up every single time like I did here with the NYC to figure out, hey, do I want to swallow or not? I feel like with every action in a game like that, I have to count. In this, it's probably a big enough difference I can just spot it, you know? Okay, but now we come to a problem. The Wabash, or as my wife likes to call it, the Wabash. Only 240, 80, $296. Easily enough to buy a 4 train, but not enough for a 5. And there's no option here. You can't swallow. There's nothing you can do to raise money. He's stuck without a train. He can't turn to somebody and say, hey, you want to sell me a train? There's none sitting over here in the stock pool. That's not part of this game. When you rust a train or whatever, it's just gone. You can't discard them any other way. So he's got nothing. He's stuck in that unprofitable company. Now he's going to lay some track, but his stock value is going to drop 2 spaces because he's unable to make money off of this company. He's screwed up, basically. And that takes player 4 out of the running by making this decision to start that company rather than, say, buying into a company that was better financed, like the C&O. Could he have done that? Well, this guy managed to buy a bunch of shares of it. He started this at the best value he could. At Tech 4, this was as low as he could start, but it gave him more shares and gave him more money to put into the company. So this is the best he could do. The Erie got lucky with only 3 shares and a higher starting value to be able to get its train running. The Wabash is pretty much stuck there. and I'll try to rectify the situation as best as I can, but he's going to be on this spiral downwards here. I think the only one, and I think the game's decided here. Guy who owned the pen, his B&Os, he didn't start with enough. A little closer, but you got to get it and you got to nail it exactly. And there's not a lot you can do here. Now his pen next turn can swallow and maybe loosen up the trains a little bit by getting the prices cheaper. So actually he's not going to buy this. He's going to buy one track, but he wants to make sure that he gets started and doesn't just lose money off this sucker. So again, another train cut back 2 stock valuations. That's a heavy blow. He just lost 14 bucks a share for no good reason. And that 5 train is an expensive burden. You got to make sure you have that money, I guess. I thought the B&O had enough on it to handle any of these contingencies. I understood why he might be in some trouble with his shorter amount of money, but there was a lot in here at 74 times 5, 370 bucks, 10 bucks short, and he can't do anything about it. Well, actually, he can buy that piece of track because the next train down is 355. So from 370, oh no, that makes it 350. No, he doesn't want to do that. Better to just service one company and start making some kind of profit and not losing money each time. Now we go to the old timers and see how the possibility of the NYNH and the B&M ever improving has just gone down to just about nothing. They're just running for their cash. Right now, that's fine. They're in the 4, but when they hit the 5s, they're going to start paying more per train, so they're going to become less profitable and take a stock hit. Speaking of stock hits, we have our little buddy here, the C&O, which had enough cash on hand to buy the train, but not enough to buy the train and march into Philadelphia and or New York, which means Philadelphia is open. Someone else could grab it. I'm not sure who. It looks like everybody around except the B&O. The B&O could slip in there. That would be bad for the C&O. They don't have the cash for it, but the B&O seems cash strapped as well. Maybe they can't make it. We'll see how that works out. As it stands, though, the C&O took a loss in their overall profitability by buying this train, okay? Because they weren't able to expand into additional spaces. Now, they could have bought Dover. If they bought Dover, they'd be too high. They'd still be taking a loss. So what they did instead was they lost a space on the stock market valuation, and they swallowed the 40 bucks so that they have room to improve. See, they have no held stock, so they're not really able to make money. Now, this guy is not thrilled with his purchase, to tell you the truth. He thought it was going to run a little better. We're seeing a lot of people hosed by this. Who's the big winner here? Maybe this guy over here. He got a couple of them 4 trains kind of late. You can't transfer trains in this game. So there's no juggling or anything like that going on. You buy a company by mistake like that, and you're just going to start sinking fast. We move into the next business round, and we'll see what that brings. Okay, as we kick into the next operating round, the Pennsylvania has almost no money. I tried to look. They'd need to swallow more than once to get a 3 train. They're making 280. There's a or a 5 train. There's a possibility that they could get the last of the 5 trains if they did a swallow. But the chance of that is low. You can't really count out and be sure what other people are going to get and when they're going to get it. It's pretty clear the B&O is going to get one. And some of the other companies, though, it's hard to tell when. I think the Wabash is going to get one at the beginning of next operating round. So that's 2 gone. And it looks likely that the Erie might be able to get one. They have a lot of certificates. Or the Nickelback might be able to get one. We might end up with that position, but I think I can wait it out a little bit longer before making that swallow decision. It's kind of a painful choice there. The problem here, of course, is the NYC has enough money that they could make the swallow and guarantee one of these, and with the dissolution of the two pen company holders, their loss of share value, this might be a safe move now for the NYC to help nail things down. Where before it looked like it was kind of a riskier move, and certainly, they're in this same static position, but the longer they let the game play out, the more opportunity for things to happen, and they can probably close the game down now with the lead that they just gained. So that's kind of the problem there, is that the NYC is likely to actually do the swallow and try to go for it. When I calculated out the pen's run, it actually ended up exactly the same as before. 70, 90, 140, 180, 260, 340, 380. Minus 100 puts them at 28, so they didn't gain any share value, nor did they lose any by running straight up, and they just ran and paid. That 280, again, it's enough to buy them one of these trains. Oh, could they get this train? Do they have, is there one for a little bit less? See, there's a 305, which is exactly the money they have. That's a little bit more opportunity. I'm going to hold off, though, because I've already paid out, and see what shakes loose. But I think the NYC is actually going to probably swallow and grab a train now. Anyway, we're on the IC, which certainly is pushing through this round. The NYC, every company is making an increased valuations. The increases on this 4 to 5 technology are fairly high, just like the boost in the train cost. Well, the increases here, $10 per locations, but in general, locations that have been flat seem to be boosting even, although I see the NYC is less the case there. But we've been in kind of this stalemate position where you needed a train to increase your valuation. Now you don't, and the effect of that is, well, the NYC made money, so they wanted to pay out rather than swallow this time, cranking their stock value up because they're not going to make money next time, right? Unless a new train comes out. But even with the $50 per train, they ended up making money, and even companies like the NYNH and the B&M are getting boosted. The B&M made a $1 exchange. Now, the B&M could have made more money if they turned in their one train, but they can save that and get another stock valuation bonus by turning that in next turn, which is one of the reasons you hold on to your trains as long as they don't lose you money, essentially. In this turn, it lost him money, but he's got a clear path forward. But in previous turns, he was just breaking even off this train. Well, now he's gotten a gain, which got him a stock gain. And now next turn, he can get another stock gain, which is worth more than the $1 a share that he would have gotten had he turned the train in this turn. Essentially, he's looking at, I don't know, an extra $8 a share to get that stock increase. And I think we're going to see this across the line where all the companies are going to be making more money this turn and therefore don't want to swallow. Of course, some of them have big pools of stock shares sitting in their company treasury, so they're still cranking in a lot of money there. Okay, and with a couple of the other companies coming up here, the Wabash and then the B&O, the guys who got stumped last turn. Well, the Wabash still doesn't have enough cash. They continued building track. They know they're going to be able to buy some shares and get this thing running. But boy, did they lose a lot of stock value. And then they're going to jump into value all at once and only get one stock gain off their train, which means they don't get that kind of regaining of the period. They're going to lose a lot of cash on this. And there's nothing you can do about it. It was a mistake to buy it, and now you're hosed. He could have not built all this track, but he wanted to get his claims and his valuation, his income coming in quickly, even though in the long term, the valuation of the stock will not grow as much. Other people, if he had left it to a position where he could grow more slowly, or just going to grab the stock and ride on it if it becomes this, you know, big boon as to how it's going to make the money. Plus, it might get cut out of some of these locations. He's pretty much hosed by his play. Likewise, the B&O, who was hosed last time, well, this time he got to start, but when I calculated this sucker out, Baltimore is only a $40 location. He got to start with his big expensive railroad. He had the cash for it. But 40 minus 50 doesn't get you profitable. So the B&O would have sunk back 2 spaces as well if they didn't spend money to go to Washington, which they don't particularly want to go to, but they needed, and they barely have the cash to do so. But, you know, the cube's not that big a deal. They're not going to use all those cubes. Not at this stage in the game. So, you know, it's really just the $20, and, well, they had to make themselves profitable, and they made themselves barely so, which is going to be pretty bad for them. Now we'll see what the C&O does. And so the C&O is finally able to get into Philadelphia. They paid out, but not a lot. They're only paying out 9 a share here. It hasn't turned out to be the boon one might have thought it was. Who's second? Oh, the IC over there. Gonna try to keep from flipping these badly. I'm in kind of an irritated state for whatever reason. Anyway, the C&O was able to make up a little bit of ground. They did not have enough cash on hand to get into New York. They don't have enough to build any further to anywhere else that'll make them money, except they could throw a cube in Dover for $10, and that'll make them a couple of extra bucks share. But that's the only growth they have available if they don't swallow. They have a good set of railroads. Well, okay, maybe not. Maybe they could sell off their 4-train, rust that, and get enough capital to grow, and they may actually do better by doing that. It's just a weird situation where they actually need to cut back on a good train because they've got so much train compared to the number of cities they've got. Anyway, I wanted to grab this turn's income. I'm never going to make a big jump in income the way that some of the companies are. It's kind of a shame that unlike 29 and 1853, this game doesn't provide you with a huge boost type of thing. So for example, in those XX games, if you make a big jump in income for your company, you end up getting a commensurate jump in terms of the amount of stock value you increase. So something like the Wabash here, of course it's making 0, so what? But that's going to make this humongous jump on the scene is still only going to go forward 1 space. It means that you don't want to aim for those big jumps. You want to do it kind of steady and slow growth type company. You can't, you know, shock the world with a big jump in value. I kind of like those big jumps in value, and here certainly, well, we'll see who ends up with the shares. Because what I was going to say is, well, this guy would just buy up all the Wabash if that was the case. In fact, somebody might do so just to get control of it. Who knows? And now we got to recalculate the total cash on hand for everyone.